Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name's Michael Lieboff. Joining me, as always, for another handicapping adventure across the pond are my co-hosts, my friends BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. But before I bring those two gentlemen in to break down this week's Premier League slate game by game, then take a little jaunt through the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1, then give out our three-leg underdog parlay. Another doozy this week. I think it's 177 to 1. And then our best bets in the Premier League. A reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer. Bet $1 on any game. Get $200 in bonus bets. You must be 21 or older. The offer is available in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, Iowa, and Virginia in the United States. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. BJ, Anthony, welcome back. Last weekend was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we have just as much
Sunday
fun this
morning.
week. Yeah. I mean, it was set up really well for us. And wouldn't you know, Everton let us down, which doesn't ever happen. We won't start with the Everton Wolves relegation 6-pointer, which I think is probably the highest stakes match of maybe across all Europe already. We'll start with Newcastle and Liverpool. It's an 11:30 a.m. kickoff on Sunday. Newcastle's plus 120 at home. Liverpool 2-1 on the road. The draw is plus 275. All three of us are in agreement here, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Newcastle at home. The market has moved a little bit. I was hoping that we would get Newcastle right around a pick'em at home, but the market's a little wiser to that. So they have moved. It is interesting because there was a pretty big delta between these two teams in the preseason markets. Newcastle was, the sixth best team with betting odds coming into the season, whereas Liverpool was pretty comfortably third. And we're already seeing a little bit of convergence toward, I think, what our general consensus was, which was that the market is kind of underestimating Newcastle because now they are a home favorite. Now they are a home favorite to the point where if you take out home field, Liverpool is still considered the better team. And I would generally say that that's probably fair. But when you look at how well Liverpool has played away from home defensively in the last year and a half, and that continued in their first match against Chelsea, where I didn't think they played particularly well defensively, then you start to find the holes in this Liverpool team. Now, they will not have Alexis McAllister, so I would expect Endo to make his full debut as a starter at the base of midfield. That is Endo is okay. He's 30 years old, but he's not nearly as athletic as McAllister, so he may offer more ball winning, but he's not the same level of athlete, and I do think that is a downgrade for them, given how much Newcastle relies on just out-athleting people and being physical and really fast in transition. So I think the Magpies are a little cheap, and I'm going to bet them at home here, plus 125.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's a couple teams in that former Big Six that's now turned into a Big Eight in the Premier League that have shown some serious cracks in the armor, and I think we should be taking them on when we can, and we'll get to a few more of them down the rest of the slate, but Liverpool is definitely one of them. I mean, I said it on the last podcast how simple it is to unlock this Liverpool defense. It's one ball basically, and they come undone. And Bournemouth showed that within 4 minutes when they scored twice. Yeah. One of them chalked off for VAR, but you thought that the Liverpool defense would see that and shiver up their spine. Let's get our act together. But 30 seconds later, the ball's back in the net again. So, I think this defense is so ripe for the picking. Tough venue. I thought, like you, Anthony, I thought we were going to see a little bit of a better number because of Newcastle's, mundane performance against Manchester City. But didn't really get there. But I still like the money line at plus 125. So I'll be on the Magpies as well. BJ.
Yeah, I will be too. I think the market hasn't really gone far enough on Liverpool yet. Anthony mentioned that Endo is probably going to be making his debut in the middle of the pitch here. That helps in some respects, but when you're going up against a Newcastle team that is one of the best teams in the Premier League in terms of transition offense, and Liverpool just showing a complete inability to defend in transition. Now, what was interesting in that match against City, and what City did to essentially neutralize Newcastle's high pressing, is they had a very narrow build-up shape. It was a 3-2-3-2, so they essentially made Newcastle defend in the middle of the pitch and then neutralize and basically put Grealish and Foden in one-on-one situations in out wide areas against the fullbacks. Liverpool can do that, but Liverpool is not the team that can have game control like Manchester City can. So it's a very, very difficult matchup for them. You even saw it against Bournemouth. Bournemouth forced 3 high turnovers. A lot of them came, within the first 20 minutes there, and they obviously scored the goal off of it. Newcastle is, 5 times better of a pressing team than Bournemouth is at this stage. So we even go back to last season. Newcastle, obviously unbelievable at St. James Park, close to a 1.5 XG differential per 90. One of their only losses came against Liverpool. Liverpool scored twice early on, and then Nick Pope got a red card. But after that red card happened, Newcastle still controlled over 50% possession and created close to 2 expected goals. So I think it's a great spot here for Newcastle at home. I don't think the market's gone far enough. I have Newcastle projected at minus 119. So I like them at plus 120.
Yeah, and it is interesting. BJ hates Liverpool, but I also have plus 108 here. So I do show value on Newcastle. I think that when you look at Newcastle as well, I think it is a little bit instructive to look at where has the market moved on certain teams. Remember, we had that conversation last year because as you get closer to kickoff and the limits go up and you see sharper money come in late, some of it is overreaction. I think you can play against that sometimes. But you also are seeing kind of where the respected groups are coming in. And Newcastle is a team that has taken a lot of money in both of its 2 matches here. So against City, they were +1 almost when we had that conversation on the pod. By the time the game kicked off, City was minus 110. And then the same was true on opening day. I think BJ gave out 135 on the pod against Villa, and they ended up closing close to 160. So they've taken some pretty significant money, them and a couple other teams I'll talk about later. It's kind of true to what happened last year as well. So there is clearly market sentiment that likes this Newcastle team. And I've always felt that way about them. So, or at least recently felt that
always.
Way. Recently,
yeah,
not always.
Going back to the Steve Bruce days, Anthony was saying, this team.
Always this season, preseason.
All right, so that's a Sunday kickoff.
They definitely missed St. Maximin against City. They could have used him.
Too bad. Well, they have Anthony Gordon.
They do.
All right, let's go to Friday afternoon now. That's a Sunday 11:30 a.m. kickoff. Friday Night Lights with Chelsea and Luton Town. This is at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea's minus 500 on the 3-way line. These odds, of course, are from Bet365. Luton Town 12-1, and the draw is 6-1. Chelsea's been a little bit of a fun experiment through the first 2 weeks. I think them and Spurs, of the teams that legitimately have aspirations of finishing in the top 4, were the 2 teams I think folks were less assured about, just in terms of like projecting them, not their ceiling or anything. Just they didn't know what to do with these 2 teams. Tottenham's kind of answered the questions, and we have some stuff to build off of. Still very confused about Chelsea. Really strong showing, I thought, in the 1-1 draw to Liverpool in match week 1. Come undone against West Ham. We kind of all were kicking ourselves a little bit for not trusting everything that we've seen out of this team for the past 12 months on the road at West Ham there. But what are you going to do? And I have no idea what to make of this team. I will say I think that this match sets up pretty well for live betting an over if it's pretty tight in the first 10 or 15 minutes. Luton Town got just demolished by Brighton. It was 4 goals on 4 expected. And Chelsea has shown some serious cracks defensively. So wouldn't be shocked if Luton Town gets on the board here. But over 3.5 can find out there like plus 130 or so would be my lean. Not something I'm thrilled about to play. But BJ, what about you?
I like Luton Town here, Michael. I like them on the spread, plus 1.5. And if you want to do a 12-1 on the money line, I wouldn't hate that either. I mean, listen, this is a situation that we kind of went through with Manchester United last season, where they were horrible to begin under Eric Ten Hag. They figured things out tactically as they get progressed more throughout the season. But there are these opportunities that we come along in the beginning of these type of eras, and especially the Mauricio Pochettino era, where we can pick them off maybe once or twice before we see the full rounded squad here for Chelsea. I mean, listen, it's a very, very difficult thing to basically overhaul an entire squad, bring in a new manager, and then have to deal with some injuries to your best players like Nkunku, like Reece James, like Fofana. So, yes, Moises Caicedo is in. They lost to West Ham. I was talking to Anthony on Monday. He called it a Ponzi scheme win for West Ham, which I kind of agree with. It wasn't, Chelsea was the better team there. I'm not going to walk away from that saying anything else. But, I mean, listen, Luton Town very well may end up being the worst team that we've ever seen in the Premier League. Talent-wise, there is a massive, massive gap between them and Chelsea. But Luton Town is in the same mold as a team like Brentford in their style of play, which they will play 5 at the back. They are relying on set pieces, and they will come out and they will press you, and they will press you intensely. I mentioned on our preview episode, Luton Town, 427 high turnovers forced in the championship last season. Next closest was Sheffield United, and they were 60 high turnovers away from them. They can be described as a team that doesn't press, they chase. So Luton Town throughout this season is not going to go down without a fight. Yes, they got absolutely demolished by Brighton in the opener, and they very well may get demolished here by Chelsea. But Chelsea is laying a higher number than Brighton was in match week 1. So either we have to sit here and say that Brighton is a better team than Chelsea, that Chelsea is a better team than Brighton, which I don't think on any planet is true at this given juncture, or Luton Town is truly that bad and the market has adjusted to them being significantly worse than what we brought in with our priors. I'm going to find somewhere in the middle of that being true. I mean, I only have Chelsea projected at around minus 220. Listen, we are going from a team that was a -3 expected goal differential to now pricing them like they were a top 3 or 4 team in the Premier League, which at this juncture, I don't believe is true. So I like Luton Town +1, +1.5. Best price you can find out there is +118. This was a good defense in the championship, only allowed 0.93 expected goals per 90 minutes. Rob Edwards has a tactical plan. They may very well get blown out here, but I want to see Chelsea do it before I stop fading them.
It just feels like what Luton wants to be is going to get carved by any decent team. That's my thing. And I watched the opening match against Brighton, and I was scared at how easy it was for Brighton to just get by them and then walk into the penalty area. Chelsea is exactly what we all thought they were through 2 matches. I think the public narrative has gone a little overboard on how bad, quote unquote, they've been, because I thought they played pretty well against West Ham. They concede off the set piece against Set Piece FC. So be it. They dominated the rest of the second half. They get done on a counter by Antonio. That was kind of like a nothing play. And then, they give away a late penalty, but they had their chances. I know everybody wants to make fun of Mudryk and wants to joke about, this, that. The reality is Chelsea is first pass in the penalty area, first crosses in the penalty area, 13th shots per 90. And I think it's what we identified as the biggest problem coming into the season when Nkunku was out. It's who's going to shoot. And they don't have anybody who is consistently going to get shots for this team. Sterling looked really good against West Ham, but he's not getting shots. He's bringing the ball into the box, and then there's nobody to cut it back to. Jackson's okay, but that's it. So I think they're going to have the same problems. What's that?
They say they could really use Romelu Lukaku.
They honestly,
they should just put him up there. I don't know.
They would score goals.
Yeah,
he needs to speak to
Pochettino. He was good in Serie A last year.
Yeah.
I know he was really bad for the World Cup with Belgium, and then he was really bad in the Champions League final. But week to week, he was good in Italy. So yeah, they just need a guy to take shots, and they don't have that right now. So that's why they're 13th in shots. That's why I cannot lay -175, but I'm definitely not betting Luton here.
All right, let's flip it to Saturday, and we'll talk about Bournemouth and Spurs. This one's taking place at the Vitality Stadium on the South Coast, home of the Cherries, +280 at home. Spurs odds on the road. The draw is +260. I kept trying to tell Anthony that the Spurs team was legitimate all summer long, that the managerial hire was good. He only has eyes for one manager, and it's the guy managing Liverpool, so he didn't listen to me. They're down to 28-1. or so to win the league. They were 40s starting the season. This number, though, seems a little rich on Spurs. Bournemouth was both good and bad against Liverpool, I would say. Brave, maybe, is the right answer there. Got on the board first. Then the defense started to struggle to cope. So it's tough. I would be a little bit closer on Bournemouth. This does feel like everyone's going to think it's an open match, like back and forth, seesaw, to defensively flawed teams with managers who just, they want the ball, they want to go, go, go. Anthony, that means you're going the other way.
Yeah, naturally, right? We talked about and overs until the market reacts. Did the market overreact? I think that's a possibility here. With this total sitting at 3, leaning toward 3.25 now, I don't know that I agree with that, because Tottenham may be without James Maddison here. And Tottenham don't really have a ton of shots. You know, they've lost Harry Kane, in case you live under a rock. And the replacement for him is Richarlison, who has attempted 2 shots in the first 2 matches of this season. And Bournemouth is going to play this pressing style, and they're going to be defensively vulnerable. And Tottenham certainly has conceded already 4 expected goals in 2 matches, which is a lot against Brentford and United. But Bournemouth is a much worse attacking team than both of those teams. And so, you don't want to overreact to that. And Tottenham without Maddison, I don't really know who fills that role, because Maddison's been playing in like this 10 role in the 2-3-5, and they've been, Basuma and Sarr, starting last week were really good. Sarr getting into the box, getting forward a bunch, but that's reliant on Maddison being the primary passer that kind of pulls the strings of the attack, because Kane being gone kind of leaves them without a true creator. And he's questionable at best here. Premier Injuries has him at 50-50 to play, based on the, how they discussed it after the match and what Ange said. It seems more likely than not that he would miss this week and be back next week for precautionary reasons. So if he's out, I think this total's high at 3. Sonny has been kind of put out wide, and I think that's a good outlet in this system against a Bournemouth team that's going to press and try to force the issue on Tottenham. But I also think Spurs are going to just be better building out from the back and avoiding those high turnovers that Bournemouth needs to score, because they did make some tweaks with Porro in the second half, and then Romero just makes them better, I think, in terms of building out. And he did play. The biggest issues you saw with Spurs were after Romero went out in the opener. So I do think this total is a touch high. But last game was so open. Like that United Spurs game could have ended 2-2 and probably what it should have been. But nevertheless, Tottenham marches on.
Nevertheless, we march on to BJ's club. Arsenal, minus 450, taking on Fulham, hosting Fulham. Cottagers 10-1 on the 3-way line, and the draw is 6-1. I rarely bet Arsenal. I'd have to go back and look to see how many times I bet them last season, but it was definitely under 5, and I'm going to bet them here. I think that team total over 2.5, minus 115. If you want to go 3.5 to get a plus number, bigger number, fine. I think they can name it here. We talked about this Fulham defense all last season. Nothing has changed. They are bleeding scoring chances, already at the foot of the table in terms of expected goals allowed, and they've played Everton and Brentford. Now we're taking a massive step up in class, going on the road. Just doesn't seem like the team is in a good spot generally, because the Mitrovic saga, Marco Silva, like I said, he had his head turned, and he's got a reputation for that kind of stuff as well. The all-for-one kind of mentality that we saw early last season, which helped them pull some big results and spend a lot of time in the top half of the table going to the World Cup, seems to be gone, and the defensive regression is coming still. So Arsenal, team total over 2.5 for me, I think is the way I'll play it. I know you guys are passing here, but BJ, spare penny?
Yeah, I mean, I generally would look at an Arsenal, either team total over 2.5 or minus 2.5 here. Paulinho will be back for Fulham, which helps them in the middle of the pitch, obviously, stopping Arsenal, where they're at their best, which is creating overloads in the middle of the pitch, creating those 1v1 situations out wide for Martinelli and Saka. But yeah, you mentioned Fulham. Their defense is a mess. Tim Ream's going to miss this match. mean, how do they stop Arsenal? I don't really know. They've conceded, this 3.7 to Brentford, 2.7 to Everton. What do you think Arsenal's going to do? Arsenal destroyed them in both meetings last season, created well over 2 expected goals, needed a late winner off of a set piece, but again, created a ton of chances against them at the Emirates. And without Mitrovic, this Fulham offense is just inept. They just don't have anything. They have counterattacks that maybe can lead to a few chances, some cutbacks, some crosses that way, but they don't have an aerial threat in the middle of the pitch. I mean, Raul Jimenez, cool, not really going to do much as we progress more throughout the season. I mean, if he gets injured, it's just going to go be Carlos Vinicius up there. So, yeah, when we talked about it, there's some real bottoming out potential with this Fulham team, and we're kind of seeing it through the first 2 matches.
Yeah, and let's hope it continues.
Yeah.
Brentford and Palace then. Another couple London teams squaring up. The Bees plus 100 at home, even money favorite at the Brentford Community Stadium. Palace plus 275. On the road, the draw is plus 250. We've talked about how the market is starting to get infatuated with this Brentford team that we were saying is really good a couple of seasons ago. They've been awesome, though. I mean, they made it look easy against Fulham, and we can kind of read into that result as you wish because of how Fulham's form has been. But a strong effort against a Spurs team that was full value in match week 1. Brentford's creating chances for fun so far to start the season. That said, I'm impressed with Palace, man. I'm impressed with Roy Hodgson and Crystal Palace. That Arsenal performance was fine. Like he did what you have to do against Arsenal when you're Crystal Palace at home. They created an expected goal. I think that Arsenal was around 2. It's, I think, as expected almost, and they kept themselves in that match, and that's all you can ask. They were really good against Sheffield United, which, read into that as you wish as well. But I would lean towards Crystal Palace because I do think that this number is going to go high as money comes in on go higher as money comes in on the Bees here, Anthony.
Yeah, pretty easy pass for me. Brentford's better. They're at home. Gets me to right around what the number is. I do think it's interesting that Palace has taken a lot of money in the first 2 weeks. They are up there on the list with Newcastle, who I talked about earlier, and now Palace is the second team. There's a third one we're going to discuss later too. But this Palace team, closed plus a half. Arsenal closed minus 110. When we did this show, Arsenal was minus 170. We were like, we kind of like Palace plus 1, but we're not really sure what to make of Palace yet, so we'll wait it out. And then Palace plus 1 was a great bet and ended up pushing, but like you said, could have easily won that late after the red card. Arsenal does do a lot of defensive possession once they have the lead, which is what scares me off of betting them against Fulham. But they can pick their score if they want, but they don't like to do that sometimes. So that concerns me. As far as this match goes, easy pass. Didn't really learn a ton about Brentford against Fulham, I thought, because they played well, but so much of the domination came after the red card. Like it was a relatively even contest, and then Brentford got the red in the pen, went up 2-0, and then just the floodgates opened, and then it was kind of a beatdown after that, but the game was over. And it's funny how that works for Fulham. Like last year, Fulham gets the most red card luck. This year, they go down a man. Now they're getting destroyed and hurting their XG differences and whatnot. So the question for me is, if Palace gets steamed again, I would probably take Brentford if I got to like plus 120, but I don't think it will. So I'm going to pass.
BJ?
Yeah, I kind of like a both teams to score no here, minus 105. I mean, Brentford, they conceded that early chance to Tottenham in the first match. Since that point on, they've faced 25 shots and only conceded 1.1 expected goals, which is what Brentford does, right? They only allow low-quality chances. Crystal Palace, they were good against Sheffield United, but like I mentioned, they took 24 shots, and other than one inside the 6-yard box, everything else was incredibly low quality. And then they were up a man for 30 minutes against Arsenal, and they still couldn't create over 1 expected goal. So in terms of this matchup, though, I mean, Crystal Palace, where they're at their best and where they're successful is when they're playing mostly in transitional moments offensively with Eze, Olise, and Edouard running at you. They're not the type of team that's going to sit there and try to break down a low block, which they're not going to be playing much in transition here because Brentford's one of the best transitional defenses in the Premier League. And if they struggled creating high-quality chances against Sheffield United's 3-5-2, well, what are they going to do against an elite 3-5-2 like Brentford's? The flip side of it is, Crystal Palace is a very, very good defensive team. They were very good against, non-elite offenses in the Premier League last season, only allowed 0.93 expected goals per 90 minutes outside of the top 6 offenses they faced. Both matches here ended in a 1-1 draw last season. It was essentially nothing happened for the first hour, and then Palace creates a big scoring chance. They score, and then Brentford equalizes late. But given the fact that these are two of the top 10 defenses in the Premier League, both offenses, Brentford's obviously been great in the first 2 matches. We'll see what they do against this Crystal Palace defense, which is very, very good. So, I had both teams to score projected at -134. So best price you can find out there right now is -105. I think there's some decent value on that.
I wanted to check in, BJ. Eddie Nketiah, how do we feel about his finishing on Monday? Do we like that, or Anthony, that my mid Nketiah belief.
Well, expected goals is the only thing that ever matters, Anthony, and you know that. So,
yeah, of course.
What did Nketiah have? Like all of Arsenal's expected goals in there. So yeah, he's fine. Don't worry about it.
We shall see.
Still an elite striker, though.
Mm-hmm. All right, now everybody's favorite part of the program. We'll talk about Everton. But before we do, we always use this when we talk about Everton. We like to remind folks that we have a new sponsor, Caldera Lab, Caldera, a skincare regimen that I do right before I brush my teeth. It's just 3 products: the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. I have the clean slate bottle right here with me. Very nice looking bottle. The clean slate is the face wash. The base layer is the moisturizer. And the good is a serum that I use at night to reduce my visible wrinkles, which are there because I bet on Everton last week. I bet on Everton match week 1. I root for Everton. They are 0-2 and now are in a relegation 6-pointer against Wolves. And right before we talk about that, a reminder that just for our audience, we have an exclusive offer. Caldera's best offer anywhere. Use the code GOAL, GOAL, at calderalab.com, CALDERALAB.com, and you get 20% off. That's 20% off with the code GOAL at calderalab.com. Make unforgettable first impressions that lead to charming words like, "You look younger," or "You must not have bet on Everton this weekend." And now we find out, will we be betting on Everton this weekend? They're plus 130 against Wolverhampton. They're at home, which is a good thing. Wolves plus 220. The draw is plus 230. These two teams have been drunk to start the season. I don't know what another way to say it. Like Everton, that first match, dominate Fulham. Neil Maupay, I mean, if God bless the man, just couldn't find the backside of a barn. Then they just get absolutely torn to shreds by Villa in a match that we all were pretty confident Everton was going to be in. One mistake defensively, then the Pickford pen, giving away the pen to Douglas Luiz, and that was all she wrote. From there, Everton kind of did what they did last season, which was once they deal with a little bit of adversity, they just kind of shrink in the moment. But these two teams, like I said, they've been drunk. That the matches have been so high event for both of them. I did not think that was going to be the case with Wolves at all, but that's what we're looking at. And Anthony, you think we're looking at I guess another drunk match here at Goodison Park?
Yeah, I like both teams to score. Look, I know that both of these attacks are picking up right where they left off last season, being the worst underperformers in the league. When you look at goals minus expected goals, teams that have not been good at finishing. Neil Maupay, I'm looking at you. Various Wolves attackers, I'm looking at you. But these defenses are too bad to warrant this price being minus 110, minus 105 even out there. These are, Wolves, first of all, Wolves have averaged through 2 matches 19 shots a game, which I would have, of all the stats and small samples and random things that happen, when the sample is 2 games, it's not really meaningful. But that is the most shocking stat of the first 2 weeks, is that Wolves are second in shots per 90. I would never have imagined that. But I did actually think Wolves played really well against Brighton. I felt a little nervy watching the goals. We looked a little weak in transition defense, and Wolves really outplayed us for good stretches of that first half. I said us.
No, it is. No, it's us. We're a part of the team.
Yeah, and in the second half is when the Wolves defense got really exposed. And I think that, as Wolves play less defensive possession, but, use their talent in this transitional way and make games more back and forth, they will score more, but they will also concede more. And I think that is going to leave a ton of space for Everton here to attack as well. And I think Wolves will get their dribbles, and once they beat the Everton press, they're going to have good looks at this back line. So, yeah, both these defenses are too bad to warrant the price at the current number. So I like both teams to score. If I had to bet a side, I would also bet the Toffees, but I'm really not looking to do that this week.
I want to see where this number goes. I'm the same way. Like it's going to be hard for me not to do it. Everton is the only team that's played 2 matches that's yet to score. So that's been good. Didn't really look like they wanted to against Aston Villa. But
they're back home.
Yeah, exactly. That match against Fulham, complete different. And as we talked about with Alon Shapiro in that preview pod, like Goodison Park's one of the better home field advantages, but it could turn toxic in this match as well, which it does on a dime. So we'll see. It's going to be an annoying Saturday morning watch for me, as the Toffees probably lose
2-1,
4-1. Close. BJ, what are your thoughts?
Over 2.5. Anything plus money is good enough here for me.
They're back.
I mean, here's what it boils down to for Everton, Michael. Like guess what? They forced 14 high turnovers again against Aston Villa, but they didn't do anything with it. And what's happened with Everton, going even back to the Frank Lampard days, they've just been so bad in transition defense for so long. And Sean Dyche, with his high pressing style, has not fixed that whatsoever. So once you beat the first line of the press, it's just acres of space for people to operate in. 2 matches, Everton 5 goals conceded, 4.4 expected goals conceded. The underlying numbers are just as bad as what we've actually seen on the pitch. And here's another problem, especially in this matchup, and something Aston Villa really honed in on, is Everton last season allowed the most crosses to be completed in their penalty area of anybody in the Premier League. And Aston Villa, time and time again, was trying to get the ball in wide areas and trying to hit crosses into. That's how the McGinn first goal was scored, and it's how really Wolves can really attack them here. Gary O'Neill's Bournemouth last season completed the 8th most crosses of anybody in the penalty area. They're also the 3rd most efficient set piece offense. Everton was very, very poor at defending set pieces. So the flip side of that is, though, Everton's way overdue to score, Michael. So they should be able to create a lot of chances here. It looks like no Dominique Calvert-Lewin, unfortunately, is hurt.
How about that one? Who saw that one coming?
Yeah,
I will say I didn't have broken cheekbone in the back of my mind. I was just thinking he'll pull up in like the 40th minute, with like a hamstring, but
I mean, listen, Wolves
and a torn hammy.
Yeah, Wolves is still going to try to build out of the back. Everton's going to press them high. It's just going to create very end-to-end chaotic style match. So I'm with Anthony. Both in terms of the chaotic match. So over 2.5 goals. Best price you can find out there is plus 117. Anything plus money is good here for me.
It has the feel of a match that I'm not endorsing it like a specific one, but it has the feel of a match where if you wanted to throw in like a crazy name your score bet, one of those,
like over 4.5.
Yeah, like something crazy. Like it. I think if you want to have fun with $10, $5, and put in like a 4-2 exact score, it's not bad. Or if you want to back someone to score 2+, this match it's one of those classic matches we talk about where the outcomes are just all over the place.
And it'll end 0-0, of course. With
it'll end 0-0.
17 million expected goals created.
I can guarantee. All right, let's move on to United and Forest now. United's minus 334. Forest 7-1 at home. There's some pretty big numbers out there as well. And then the draw is 5-1. I like Forest here, kind of in the same tune as BJ was talking about with Chelsea. I think that you can take on Manchester United at big numbers and feel pretty comfortable with it right now. I think they were better than the score suggested against Tottenham.
Oh, yeah.
but there's still so many things where they can come undone in an instant. Right? They're making mistakes. Their defense is not there yet. Forest should sit deep. We saw them have trouble with these kind of low blocks all last year as well. And like for all Forest faults, like they've scored in both matches so far. They've got 3 in the bank already.
Beat Sheffield.
They beat Sheffield United 2-1. Yeah, and
lucky win.
Yeah,
No.
but they scored against Arsenal. They made it a little interesting down the stretch in that match. So they have a little bit of bite to them, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And United you can't trust them. You just can't at this moment. So maybe as the season goes on, we can. And they just don't. I've heard it a couple of times now. They don't look fit. Like they seem to be just like wilting down.
They run out of gas big time.
Yeah, it's really weird. So yeah, I'm gonna be on Forest here. I like the Forest money line. I'll see.
Roy Keane certainly had his fair share of opinions after that Tottenham match.
Yeah. Well,
he's not.
Roy. Roy
usually
usually keeps those opinions in his pocket.
Yeah,
so it's a little.
He's usually
form.
Straight laced by the book.
Is anyone joining me here?
It feels like a good get right spot for United to me, but I think that if the attackers can't do anything against Forest, we have to start really asking questions because Anthony Garnacho and Rashford have not been good at all. Pretty much all the attack has come from Bruno in the first 2 matches. They're producing a lot of shots and a lot of box entries, but like the good stuff from the center of the penalty area, they're just not getting any of it. Rashford has been poor, and Mason Mount's probably going to miss here. Looks like he's out. So who replaces him is a really interesting question because if it is Eriksen, that does add a lot of passing range. And I think with the 2 of them, Eriksen and Fernandez next to each other, like that's just going to kind of wreck Forest and lets Anthony and Garnacho kind of just be in the penalty area and should help solve the shots problem. But if he is in there as well, he's old. He doesn't do a lot of defensive work at all. And now you're kind of carrying 2 passengers, whereas Mount, I know he's been criticized in his first 2 weeks, but he does do some good defensive stuff. So if he's out, that makes them even more vulnerable in transition and defensively. And, Lissandro and Casemiro have been terrible. I think that's been the biggest problem for United. They rely so much on those 2 guys last year being really good, and they were, but they've been so bad. So I think that both teams to score here, -105 is my price. I know how bad Forest has been away from home, and it's a scary thing because I think their defense could crumble in this match. But
just a 1 win for them last year away from
exactly. I do think they can score though, and I think with Taiwo out there, they have been a good attack when he's on the pitch. They've been a good attack.
BJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this number is right around where I have it. I have United at -262, and it will be interesting to see if Nottingham Forest can actually get at United in transition here to see. I mean, listen, Casemiro's great, but he's also getting older. And if you bring Eriksen on the pitch, you're, like Anthony said, you're losing another kind of defensive option in transition. So Nottingham Forest may be able to get at them that way. And the Onana thing is going to be interesting as we go throughout the season. It's only a 2-match sample size, but something Anthony also mentioned coming into the season. He's not a great shot stopper. He's great at playing out of the back, and it helps United in their build-up play, but he's made some mistakes early on here. So we'll see how that goes throughout the season. But hey, all credit to Nottingham Forest. Second fewest expected goals allowed through 2 matches, only 1.3. So credit to them. Yeah, I know.
Onana very good at claiming crosses in the penalty area as well. He showed that against Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very efficient.
Yeah, and luckily Nottingham Forest doesn't cross the ball at all. They're your classic build up through the middle type of team.
All right, Brighton in a standalone 12:30 p.m. kickoff, -188, hosting West Ham +425. The draw is +375. I feel this way about Arsenal as well. That Arsenal, like if you want to bet like a Arsenal team total over -2.5, whatever. I feel like Brighton and Arsenal both make decent round robin legs. College football is back. Week 0. Make sure to listen to the Big Bets on Campus podcast to get some good betting insight on week 0 and beyond. But I think Brighton in this spot actually makes a decent round robin leg if you're going to do something with some college football underdogs, some Premier League underdogs. And like I said, I feel that way about Arsenal. So it would be Brighton or nothing here, but I'd want to play them in that kind of fashion where it's like, I just don't want to have him as a standalone bet. I'd rather them as like a leg in a parlay in a more kind of all day type bet that I can have some fun with. So that's my thinking here on the Seagulls, who off the charts numbers to start the season. I really am interested to see if De Zerbi just sticks around for this whole season, because we're 2 weeks into the season, about to be 3 in the Premier League. We're probably 3 weeks away from some teams starting to get restless with managers due to missing expectations in the early
Chelsea.
going, and so we'll see.
Bowley would never.
Yeah, no, yeah. Anthony, as Anthony said,
They'd
Bowley's not
never
crazy.
fire Potter, is what Anthony said, ever.
But if Brighton just cooks like this, why would he ever leave?
Right.
So that's how I'd play it. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Well, for the first time this season, I will not be betting the Brighton Seagulls at the current number. Brighton is the third team, along with Palace and Newcastle, that have taken money every week. And they, like we said on the show, when they were minus 105, and we laughed and said that's a ridiculous price against Wolves. They closed minus 130. They won 4-1. It was a relatively competitive match, but the second half was not. The goals continued to just pour it on. And, I think the number's about right here. West Ham's win against Chelsea, like I said, was a bit of a Ponzi scheme. When you look at how they can do the things to equalize games, set pieces are certainly the main way, and James Ward-Prowse being in there will improve your set pieces automatically. But there's also like the drop off between Rice and like Souček looks done to me, and Ward-Prowse is not even close to Declan Rice in the actual run of play. Edson Alvarez may pop in here. They need him because they are in trouble. Because what West Ham was so good at last year, and really what they've been good at under Moyes, is, okay, we'll let you have the ball. We're going to let you possess and have it in the final third, non-dangerous areas, but you're not going to get a lot of shots. You're not going to get into our penalty area efficiently. Chelsea walked into the penalty area over and over and over again, and I think that was the biggest difference. So, you look at the result and you're like, yes, resounding defensive performance, classic David Moyes, but there were a lot more cracks under the hood than maybe we originally thought. If you just looked at the results and you said, yeah, they conceded one, but again, Mudryk volley, and they had the other cut back to Jackson that he missed, and then there was the missed penalty, of course. So I think there was a lot of holes in the performance, and I think the defense could get exposed here. But again, the set pieces efficiency, they're going to be a tough out. So I think West Ham has secured maybe its floor, because they're certainly better than enough of these teams that they're probably not getting relegated. I know we hinted at that in the preseason, but this defense could get worse. I think there's a real chance that it does.
Anything for you here on Brighton or West Ham? I shouldn't even say that second part. Anything for you here on Brighton?
No, I agree with you, Anthony. The number is about right for me. I projected Brighton at minus 195. If those cracks that we saw against Chelsea continue here against Brighton, Brighton's going to pour 4 goals in again. Last season, towards the end, Brighton in this same match, Brighton at home against West Ham, Brighton won 4-0, created 3.5 expected goals, just created chance after chance after chance, and West Ham had absolutely no answer. So this is another situation where, again, if you want to play Brighton -2 or -1.5 and chase a bigger price, I think there's some decent value in this, but I want to see where this line goes, because we hit Brighton, -205 at some shops now. Now it's creeped back down to -180. It just came out today that Enciso got injured in training, which Brighton has a plethora of wonderful attackers, so I'm not too concerned with the loss of him. Our guy Evan Ferguson keeps coming off the bench. They keep starting Danny Welbeck up top. Not really sure why. I assume it's because Welbeck is better tactically, better at pressing, better of what De Zerbi wants to do. But I'd like to see our guy Evan Ferguson score a couple more times and get on the pitch and at least start.
I wonder why. Are you financially incentivized to hope that Ferguson gets on the pitch?
Yes.
I think so far. I think Ferguson eventually, you bet the talent long term. But they've been playing pretty well with Danny Welbeck, and
I just said it would be
Golden
nice.
Boot.
I didn't say to do it. I just said it'd be nice if they started Evan
the
Ferguson.
Golden Boot winner and leader is playing off the right.
So yeah,
Solly March. So they don't need a striker. Welbeck hasn't scored yet. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Stupinian getting in on the action as well. He's been a great FPL pick.
All right, Sunday morning. Welcome back, Burnley. Luton Town had last week off. While Luton Town finishes up the upgrading of Kenilworth Road. Burnley's at home, hosting Aston Villa. Two claret and blue sides going at it. The line here is Burnley plus 240, Villa plus 115, and the draw at plus 240 Villa coming off that walk in the park against Everton. Thought this line would be a little bit better on Burnley, even at home, and just because Villa looked so good. Obviously, Burnley was off last week, so out of sight, out of mind. Plus, the last time we saw them, they were getting romped a little bit by City. So this looks right to me. I'm going to be passing here. BJ, anything?
Yeah, I'm passing as well. I think the number's about right. I had Aston Villa close to plus 120 here. The thing about Burnley is the reason they were so good in the championship is not only because they were able to control possession and have dominate matches that way, but they were one of the best pressing teams. Like they pressed really, really intensely to their opponents. I'm not sure if that's going to work here against Aston Villa, and if it doesn't work, Aston Villa is going to absolutely rip them apart the same way that they did Everton. Also, there's this, sentiment out there that Nathan Tella was kind of all of Burnley's offense last season. Now he's at Southampton. They did make some signings. Amaduni coming in is a decent signing, but he didn't really, he hasn't only played one match with Burnley. So kind of interested to see where the offense actually comes from Burnley, especially a team that we mentioned many times, overperformed by about 20 goals in the championship. So it's a pretty easy pass for me, but I do want to see how effective Burnley's pressing is here at home against a team that's going to primarily build out of the back to see if, for future reference, if they are going to be a live underdog or not.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Burnley. I mean, we didn't see them play last week, and we saw them play Man City in the first match. I thought they were okay against City. They didn't get overrun completely, but they weren't that competitive either. So, yeah, no play for me. I thought that the market would give us a better number on Burnley plus a half, but it did not, and it gets at the sentiment that the market is not like Aston Villa at all. The Everton, was plus 125 plus a half when we bet it last week. They closed minus 115, and Villa was right around minus 110. So a bad weekend for CLV bettors last weekend, but Villa has now twice in a row, the market has moved against them, and they opened at a much lower number than I thought it would this week, because Villa is a team that BJ and I have consistently said they're overvalued, and the market is now kind of coming around to what we said, even though Villa had a resounding 4-0 win, which I find fascinating. But no play here.
All right, last Premier League match to talk about, and it'll be a pretty quick discussion. BJ's the only one with a bet.
Will it be?
Yeah.
BJ's betting Sheffield because he's insane.
Yeah.
Holland is washed, right?
Yeah.
Did he score last match? I don't even remember. No, he didn't. So he hasn't scored in 3 of the 4 matches City have played this year.
It's true. Is City worse with Holland?
I think we may have to start asking the question.
This may be my last time betting on Sheffield United. I'll be flat honest.
I would lay minus 1,000. That's not true.
I just can't believe that this team, in terms of where the market is pricing them, is as bad comparatively to what they were in the championship. And I get it. They've lost some pieces. They just signed Cameron Archer from Aston Villa, which is a good signing to help their offense. Manchester City's in a very weird place right now. Like, Pep Guardiola is going to miss the next few matches because he's had back surgery. Everything we know about Pep Guardiola is he's an absolute control freak, and I don't think that his assistants have really been pulling strings from the touchline and making tactical changes. So not going to downgrade City like enormously, but it does affect him a little bit going into this match. And the version that we're going to see with City this season, and it's going to be, if you feel more comfortable playing under 3, I think there's still some value on that. But City is going back to absolute game control because they're playing 4 center backs along with Rodri. And, especially with Kovacic in there as well, he's not really a get forward type of midfielder in the mold of what Gundogan was. Still no Kevin De Bruyne. So now City is sitting here kind of comparatively to seasons past are limited in terms of their attackers. And listen, they only created one expected goal against Newcastle. They scored the goal and then they kind of just controlled everything from that point on. And that's kind of where I landed here, is that I don't think they should be laying 2 goals on the road to a team that I still believe is a decent defensive team and will be okay as we go throughout this Premier League season. Gustavo Hammer is a good signing from Coventry City. He was their best midfielder, getting them to a promotional playoff spot last season. Sheffield United can play in this 5-3-2. I know that they, conceded some decent chances to Nottingham Forest on the road. Didn't look great against Crystal Palace, but laying 2 goals on the road in the Premier League is always a difficult thing to do. And I know it's Manchester City, but given how defensive their approach has been to begin this season and how it's going to be as we go throughout the season, I think they're overvalued here. So I like Sheffield United +2 at -110. And it might be my last ever bet on them, but we'll see. I think that the market's just gone way, way too crazy low on this team.
Yeah, I would maybe bet. You could convince me to bet the under, but you could not convince me to bet Sheffield +2. 2.25.
What about 16-1?
No.
Michael, I can see in your
I
eyes.
want to know on City under this year. I'm trying to keep a good record on those. But Holland,
maybe Tom Davis anytime goal scorer.
It's true.
Also, they're playing Foden
He did
Central.
tear up City in his I think his Premier League debut. He took Yaya Toure for a walk at Goodison Park. And
put him in his pocket.
Yep.
They've been playing Foden centrally, and it's just not his best position.
He's looked great.
He's played well there, but
he's looked great.
They're like shoehorning things in here. It's
exactly.
Yeah,
this is my point.
That's what they do.
See,
also, I love how BJ said Pep's assistants don't do anything.
I didn't say that. I just said that he's in control.
It was Pep's cone guy for years.
All I said is he's a control freak, and that I'm saying that the assistants probably aren't making tactical changes themselves from the touchline like other teams are, like most notably Michael's boy, Carlo Ancelotti, who just kind of stands there.
I love him.
It's his son, Michael, who makes all the tactical changes for Real Madrid. I don't know if you knew that.
Davide. Maybe he'll come back to Everton one day.
Yeah.
Bundesliga time. Just waiting to bet against Bayern Munich, but I'm not betting Augsburg to do it again. So I'm just going to sit this one out. Anthony, what do you have?
Yeah, so there is a Jude Bellingham and Rafael Guerrero-sized hole in Dortmund right now. They had 4 passes into the penalty area at home against Cologne, which is really bad for their numbers. They ended up with 1.5 XG. Malen scored late. They won. Cool. But now it's 3.5 the total on the road at Bochum. Look, Bochum was a team that won as many home games as they lost last year. They've been a difficult out at home. They have showed some defensive solidity there and have rallied. And I know that the total is now 3.5. I have my questions about Dortmund's defense, but Bochum plus goalie at home and Dortmund having some ball progression issues. I think this is a lower scoring game than the market suggests. So I'm going under 3.5. And it's funny, my biggest edge of the weekend is actually Gladbach, but I don't want to bet them.
Too many injuries.
That market has gotten crazy, but it is instructive because Gladbach, who I talked about on our Euro show, 33-1 to be relegated, got dominated by Augsburg last weekend, and now the market has said you are a terrible soccer team, and I agree.
All right, BJ, what do you have?
Well, let's go back to Union Berlin.
No, not again.
Apparently, they're going to run like gods again this season.
Kevin Barron's hat trick was not on my bingo card for the Bundesliga.
Was Mainz missing 2 penalties on your bingo card?
That was expected because they're playing Union, but yeah, that was fun.
I mean, Union goes up 2-0 inside 10 minutes, 2 low quality chances. It's just what they do. But what I want to hone in on here is that game state's very important to what, if you're betting Union Berlin's, whether it be both teams to score no or unders, especially with them, which I'm betting under 2.5 here against Darmstadt. In matches that were either 0-0 or 1-1 last season, only 1.8 XG per 90 was the creation total. So if Union Berlin goes ahead, they can play in transition. A lot of more chances are created. They obviously sit deeper in a lower block, and teams create a lot more chances against them. Welcome back, Darmstadt. 6 years in the second division, coming up here to the Bundesliga. They are a club that plays a very, very similar style to that of Union Berlin. It's 3-4-1-2. They typically, when they played a lot of the bigger sides, Hamburger, Paderborn in the second division, they would concede 60-65% possession. They did overperform their XG defensively, only 33 goals allowed in 34 matches, 13 clean sheets. Their plan against Frankfurt was kind of similar to that of what Union Berlin is going to do, which is basically sit very deep, concede a lot of possession, sit in their deep low block. Outside of one chance, huge chance that Frankfurt converted, Frankfurt only took 8 other shots and 0.7 XG on those other 8 shots. So box entries for the match were 11-11. So honestly, a pretty decent performance for a newly promoted team going on the road to a team like Frankfurt. So under 2.5 is sitting at -120. I only have 1.9 goals projected. So I think that's a decent price for two teams that are going to be very, very passive and sitting in low blocks.
La Liga, probably lay it with Bilbao at home. Looked much better in week 2. What about you, BJ?
Barcelona plus 106. They played Villarreal in February on the road. They won the match 1-0, and they closed as a -145 favorite. What has happened since then that makes any of us believe that Barcelona is either a significantly worse team or that Villarreal is significantly better? Oh, and that match was a look-ahead spot where they were playing Manchester United in the Europa League knockout playoffs 4 days from then. Villarreal, like we've mentioned many times, they got raided this summer. Pau Torres, Chukwueze, Jackson, they're all gone. And now the problem that's going to exist for Villarreal is that they are a highly, highly possession-dominant team under Quique Setien. Actually, in that match against Barcelona, controlled over 50% possession. But Barcelona is a very, very good counter-pressing team, second in La Liga in passes per defensive action and high turnovers, forced 9 high turnovers in that match against Villarreal. So I think the price here on Barcelona is really, really low, considering what Villarreal is at this point. So I like Barcelona plus 105.
What about you, Anthony? And Barcelona, by the way, that was the team I was thinking of when I was talking about De Zerbi. Anthony, what about you?
Even they're going to fire
Xavi.
Xavi's gone. I
Yeah,
can just see De Zerbi. You could he's got like the Barcelona aesthetic to him, and anyways. Anthony.
His system is not all that different from what Xavi likes to do at Barca.
Yeah.
There are similarities. I would like to say that the biggest thing with Barca is that can they replace Dembele, who actually was really good last year and now is gone. That's probably their biggest hole, question mark. And, obviously like Busquets is gone, but we're not the biggest Busquets people at this point, although he's tearing up MLS. I like Vallecano plus 0.5 at home. Look, they lost Iraola, but they've kept most of that squad together, and they've put together 2 pretty impressive performances and continue to just get no respect in the market. So I think they're still a good, plucky underdog to look to bet in La Liga this season. They get your boys at home, the Atletico Madrid, so a little Madrid derby to start the season. If you look at it from just like a last season perspective, expected goal difference per 90 minutes, this game should be right around a quarter goal, not a half. And so you're paying a little bit of an tax on Atleti having the much heavier squad and kind of whatnot. But again, Vallecano, there's been some penalty luck early in the season for them. But this is a team that has now gone on the road the first 2 weeks and outplayed their opponents, Almeria and Granada. Now they come home for the first time. I think they're a little bit cheap, plus 0.5 against Atleti, who, again, we talked about Atleti. Like if Griezmann just slows down, they're just not that good anymore. And they don't really have, they've gotten some good production out of Griezmann so far, but the XG per 90, like the whole attack has been just, what can Alvaro Morata do now?
Well, we know what he can do. He can win the Golden Boot at Euro 2020.
And World Cup.
And the World Cup. And probably Euro 2024. Serie A time. Serie A. Anthony, the motherland. What do you got?
Yeah, something really interesting happened last week with Milan. Christian Pulisic scored a banger.
Yeah.
That was kind of fire. And their attack looked really fun and dynamic. But You look at like the box numbers from that game and how the midfield performed and how the defense looked, and I thought they looked pretty vulnerable, and I still think it's going to be a problem for them. Now they go up against a Torino team, which is a pain in the ass to play. They are the worst watch, probably one of the 2 or 3 worst watches in Italy. They make it ugly. They have a very good defensive organizational system, but I think the pressure they're able to apply in midfield is going to really cause problems for Milan getting margin here. So I like Torino +1 on the road against Milan.
Yeah, that Pulisic goal made the rounds. Talking about things you didn't have on your bingo card. BJ, what about you?
Lazio, Genoa, both teams to score +105. All-time yikes performance from Lazio against Lecce on Sunday. Conceded 23 shots and 1.5 expected goals to what was the worst offensive team in Serie A last season. Now, Lazio offensively did make some moves this summer that I think in the long run will help them. They bring over Dachi Kamada from Frankfurt, Tati Castellanos, who had a great season with the Girona last season. Hopefully those can fill the void of Milinkovic-Savic leaving for Saudi Arabia. But we know the start with their defense. I mean, 29 goals off of 41 expected last season. They're going to regress heavily as we go throughout this season. They have made no moves defensively other than signing Hugo Lloris, so their defense is magically fixed now. But going up against a Genoa team that, welcome back after one season in the second division, 1.84 XG per 90. They did bring in some attacking pieces. One of my guys, Ruslan Malinovsky, comes over from Marseille, helps their attack. Matteo Retegui comes over from Tigre in Argentina. I apologize for mispronouncing that. $12 million price tag, 11 goals and 21 appearances in Argentina. Should help them offensively. I mean, Genoa got absolutely cooked in their opener against Fiorentina. 4 goals off of 1 expected. The goalkeeper is a big problem. But both teams to score here for 2 defenses that are going to be below average in Serie. I think it's too low at +105.
Ligue 1. You both actually have a play in Ligue 1 this week, Anthony.
Yeah, I like Lille -110. You can find a -105 out there on the road against Lorient. They do have a Conference League fixture on Thursday against a Croatian side, but the first leg is at home. So the travel concern comes on the back end of this trip, and maybe look to play against them next week as they, depending on how they rotate through their team here. But I've been really encouraged by the early season returns. Lille's a team that we both liked based on their numbers, what they did last year in their first year under Fonseca. And they have had 2 games. They had a draw with Nice that was a pretty even match, and a road match at Nice, given Nice's progression as well. They've really taken a step forward. De Zerbi's assistant, actually, the manager there now. And they rolled Nantes last week despite overcoming some red card woes. So I think that they're a really good team. They're the second best team in this league right now. And I think they're underpriced against a Lorient side that had very, very mediocre, shall we say, underlying performances last year and has had a continually mediocre start to the season thus far.
BJ, real quick, and then we'll get to our underdogs.
Yep, Monaco -120 going up against Nantes, who barely survived relegation last season. Nantes sold their best player, Ludovic Blas, to Rennes, who was a .48 XG plus expected assist attacker last season. They didn't really do much to replace him. Monaco was a very, very good offense in Ligue 1 last season, 1.63 XG per 90. They did lose some pieces, but bringing in guys like Denis Zakaria, Salusu, and Singo from Torino should help them retool. And Monaco was a better team on the road last season than they were at home. +6.5 expected goal differential on the road versus +2.4 at home. So I think that they are a little undervalued at -120.
Okay. Underdogs. We really knocked it out of the park last week.
0-6.
And the week before, yep, we're due, baby.
Bournemouth did score first, so we basically won that one.
Yeah, that was we were feeling pretty live for a minute. Got a couple texts. As
friend of the pod, Steve Petrella, said something like "This is fun" or something.
Yeah, that was one of the texts. All right, we'll start with you, BJ.
Almeria +230 on the road against Cadiz. I mean, Cadiz got torched by Barcelona last week.
0-7.
Almeria put up a good performance against Real Madrid. They took 20 shots against Real Madrid. It's impressive. Cadiz, I faded them in the opening match. If you remember, Alaves, it was one of the more boring matches you've ever seen in your life. Basically nothing. Cadiz scored off a set piece and then just kind of held on for the rest of the match. Almeria, they're a horrible defensive team. Absolutely atrocious. But they're at least somewhat respectable offensively, unlike Cadiz. Almeria was 1.2 XG per 90 last season. It's only 0.02 lower than what Sevilla was. So this is a halfway decent offense. They did just sell Bilal Torre to Atalanta, but they bring in Ibrahim Kone. They brought in the Colombian Luis Suarez. No, not the Uruguayan Luis Suarez to the club halfway through last season. He had a decent performance. So those two attackers should make up for Bilal Torre, who only played 1490s last season. So it's not like he was everything to their offense. So Cadiz should not be favored here. They were the worst team in La Liga last season outside of Elche. So give me Almeria plus 230.
Bilal Torre is already hurt for Atalanta. It's very upsetting.
I'll take a shot on Forest.
Ugh.
Nottingham Forest. They're 8-1. 8-1 against Manchester United. This is a bet against United. I'm just poking them. I want to see if the problems are real, and I'll take an 8-1 underdog to do it. I know they were at home, but they were at home against Wolves in a match that they should have lost against a bigger underdog than Forest was at the time. So I think there are some things that United needs to get sorted out. I think that they will eventually, but right now is the time to try to beat them, and Forest has shown some bite. So give me Nottingham Forest. The attack has looked all right. The Manchester United defense has not. Anthony, let's go. Make it 0-9, baby.
I will do just that. Torino 5-1 on the road at Milan. I just talked about this match a minute ago. Like I do think that there's like a breaking point for how long Ilic can get away with this. Juric can get away with this in terms of his system and kind of getting the most out of what's pretty average talent. But again, it's a Torino team that was just a perfectly fine average Serie A side. And unless you think that Milan has taken a step forward into that upper echelon of teams like Napoli and Inter, who frequently would be +1 against or -1 against the Torino side, then this line should be 3/4 or a half. And instead you're getting the full goal and you're getting the 5-1 when I have this closer to 4. So I like Torino here. They're very strong defensively, and that will make this game a high variance type affair.
There you go. 177-1. That parlay pops out at. We'll see if we can break the schneid. Our best bets, Premier League best bets, have been going much better though.
5-1.
5-1 to start the season. So we'll see if we can keep this hot run going. Anthony, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Everton and Wolves, both teams to score. We'll grade it at -110 since that's the consensus market price right now. Two defenses that have been among the worst in the entire league to start the year. We've discussed Everton and Wolves at length here on this show. We know that both attacks have vastly underperformed XG for more than a full season now, which, makes me think it's maybe not just luck or regression, but it just the level of finishing talent.
The presence of Neil Mopai.
Yeah, exactly. And Wolves not having any striker. But again, the poor defenses and the way that both of these teams are changing how they play, with Dyche being more aggressive and with Wolves changing with O'Neill into more of a transitional back and forth frenetic haywire team. This is not Lopetegui ball anymore. This is different, and this will lead to goals. So I like the -110 both teams to score.
I'm going Arsenal. Team total over 2.5, -115 against Fulham. We spoke all season long last year about how this Fulham defense was due just to be caved in near the bottom of the Premier League, or at the bottom, depending on the XG model you looked at all season. Despite that, they finished in 10th place, and things have not gotten better for the Cottagers so far to start this season. They got torn to shreds by Everton in terms of at least giving up big scoring chances. They still pitched a clean sheet somehow, and what will likely go down as the biggest kind of clean sheet miracle of the season in match week 1. And then they got beat down against Brentford again, trouble stopping the Bees. Now they take a huge step up in class. They go to Arsenal to take on an offense that was held in check by Crystal Palace, relatively held in check by Nottingham Forest. I think that this is a great opportunity for Arsenal to name it, put up a crooked number, and start to get their offensive form going. So Team total over 2.5 minus 115, I think is a good number. If you want to chase 3.5 or even a 4.5, go for it. Because I think that this is could be a football score for Arsenal. BJ, what do you have?
Luton Town plus 1.5, plus 115 at Chelsea. Friday Night Lights. Listen, Chelsea may end up being a top 3 or 4 team in the Premier League when this is all said and done. But the state that they're in right now, given the amount of roster overhaul, bringing in a new manager, it's going to take some time for Chelsea to become one of those top 4 teams in the Premier League. And Luton Town, they were horrible against Brighton in the opener. But Chelsea now is sitting around minus 500, which is a higher mark than what Brighton closed at against Luton Town. You cannot tell me right now that Brighton is a worse team than Chelsea or that the market has downgraded Luton Town this significantly after just one match. Luton Town's had 2 weeks to prepare for this one. They play a style that's very similar to what Brentford has done, although they don't have the type of quality and talent that the Bees do. But they'll play a 5-3-2. They will press you incredibly intensely, and they will not go down without a fight. So give me Luton Town plus 1.5. I'm going to keep fading Chelsea, who was a -3 expected goal differential team last season in the Premier League. It takes a lot to generate this much market respect when you were just an average team. So Chelsea may very well turn this thing around, but I'm going to keep fading them until they do.
There you have it. Another episode of Wondergoal is in the books. Thanks again to our sponsors, Bet365. Thank you to Caldera Lab. Thank you to anyone who's left a review in the past few days. Our producers, thank you to our producers, first of all, Noah, Matt, etc. But they do remind us to remind you to do so. I never do it. But if you do like or subscribe and leave a review, 5 stars, whatever, we do hold a bunch of contests throughout football, soccer, like, the busy season of sports. So if you do leave reviews, you usually are automatically entered in that. So please do it. Be sure to listen to the other podcasts on the Action Network. BBOC, Big Bets on Campus, is back with a bunch of college football. We will see a lot of NFL stuff, and then it's hockey, basketball, etc. Sports are coming back after a summer of betting on the cricket, betting on Aussie rules. We also have the U.S. Open coming. If anyone's going, a few of us will be there. Not BJ, but Andy and I. So be sure to drop a line.
I'll be there.
For BJ Cunningham, for Anthony DeBundo, I'm Michael Leboff. Be sure to bet Tommy Paul to win the U.S. Open.
Don't do that.
And we'll see you next time.